Hi, everybody. I'm Sandy. I'm an alcoholic. I asked Bob what we're doing. He says, I don't know. I'm going to find out when you start. Well, we know the general theme of this. And people like to ask that question a lot, is AA different than when you came in? Does it look like it's going to succeed? Is there any problems, et cetera, et cetera? And I think that AA today, there are pockets of energy, there are young people, there's levels of enthusiasm that are just so much fun to watch. And that energy, to see it harnessed like that, gives me a sense of comfort that the future is probably going to be good. The groups that I go to are very exciting. Nobody who comes doesn't get a sponsor. The issues that might come up from time to time are quickly resolved. I very rarely see the unity disrupted. And so there's a lot of wonderful things. The thing that holds AA together is alcohol. I hate to give the credit there. I'd rather give it to the credit to all of our spiritual giants are holding it together, but we got to give credit to alcohol. It's sitting out there going, understand you don't want to work the steps. Come on over here. Bam, 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 bam. And then you come back and go, what are those steps? So we got to remember that the common enemy is a part of the equation. It really is. And we have to remember that. And our common solution is the other half. So there's never going to be a letdown on the part of alcohol. It's going to stay 100% committed to killing alcoholics. So we don't have to worry about that side. Now, on the other side is, will the commitment to the solution stay as intense as it was when we first started? So now these are kind of abstract, but I've given a lot of thought to this. So I'll give you my setup to talk about this. And the setup goes like this. It's been on some talks before. Wow, can you imagine back in the old days when there was only one meeting in your town? How the hell do you stay sober on one meeting a week? And then you go, well, you really look forward to the meeting. And maybe you get together with somebody else who belongs to that group halfway through the meeting, through the week, and you have coffee, and you talk about only 3 more days we'll have a meeting. But mostly, you prayed like hell. That's how you did it. You just prayed and prayed and prayed. So that was then, and this is now. And we look back then and go, boy, that must have been tough. So now, we have 6 a.m. meetings, noon meetings, 5 o'clock meetings, 8:30 meetings, midnight meetings, discussion meetings, gay meetings, women's meetings, conferences, roundups, pamphlets, literature, CDs, tapes. We have such a support system today, you hardly have to pray at all. That's my fear. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's such a subtle thing. I'm getting along pretty good on what I'm doing. Going to meetings, hanging around with my friends. It's just not bad enough to go find a spiritual book and get into it. It's really not bad enough to go to a retreat or to go advance my own spirituality. I'm halfway comfortable. I've got pretty good sobriety. And it's been that way. I've been this way for quite a while. So there's a great resistance to changing anything because it's not painful enough. And it's not Bill, but he quoted Lincoln as saying, the biggest enemy of the best is the good. So as long as things are pretty good, we're in trouble. That's what I would say to anyone with your own spiritual life. If things are pretty good, you're in trouble because you're going to stay there. You're never going to get to the best. You're never going to get to the fourth dimension. You're never going to see the sights that the steps were intended to give you. And so we need a commitment to excellence and to moving in that direction, which I'll be glad to talk about some more. But that's my basic start on this.
Thank you, Sandy. I'm Bob. I'm an alcoholic. How is AA different today for me than what it was when I came in 1967? When I came in 67, my impression was, first of all, the meetings were smaller. You had a new person once a month, and they got a lot of attention. And the new person pretty quickly and generally kind of fell in line with the general activity that was happening in the group. You know, there weren't any factions or going on. It was mostly male. We had one or two women in the group and most of the meetings I went to. It was mostly married. People mostly came in their late 30s to 50s. They were churched, married. They had careers, even, you know, anywhere from a working stiff up to a school, you know, a professor or a professional person. But they were pretty much going to get sober and generally go back to what they had been doing prior to coming into the program of AA. Today, what I see is that the people are much younger. We see them come in, there might be an average of 25 years old or 25 to 30 would be the bulk of the people that I see coming in our meetings, 20 to 30. They're not churched, they're often not educated. If they were married, they've blown through their marriage. So they don't have the pillars of support that often people had with the older group and the more homogeneous group that I was presented with when I came in. It seems to me people go to many more meetings. I was always kind of unusual in that I went to more meetings than most of the people I knew, but my sponsor, 55 years sober, went to one meeting a week. I can't tell you that thousands of 12-step calls, and I don't mean hundreds. I mean the 12-step work he did, the coffee, I mean his house is an open house. He took new people to other meetings, so I'm minimizing the meetings he went to because he would go to other meetings to take people. But in general, he went Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. And many of the people, I would say the majority of the people at the club that I went to a certain meeting on a certain night. And I went to 5 or 6 meetings a night. I just, a week, couldn't do it. Our meetings are still pretty much of the same character in our area. Most of them are closed-step discussion meetings. I never talked at my AA group till I was 25 years sober. We had one open meeting a month, and by tradition we had outside speakers. My sponsor never talked till he was 30-some years sober at our group. I mean, we led step meetings, but we only had one open house, and there were outside people. We had Marty Mann come to our group one time and talk. So we talked at everybody else's groups. So I think the danger for all of us, especially for old-timers, is to become critics, that we have an affection for how it was when we came in, and we notice the difference today and what people are doing well and not doing well, and that's a dangerous seat anywhere in any organization. And once you are really an active member of the group and part of it, then you are not on a stand looking at the group with a critical eye. You are a participant on the team, and you have a sense of how are we doing, which is a different look. You might have a criticism, an objective criticism that we should do a little bit more 12-step work or change the format of the meeting a little bit, but you do that as a family member, not as a person who's an authority who, is coming in. I see the same elements. sometimes every once in a while I get in a conversation with people who are very active members of AA who are talkers like we're doing this weekend. And this is going to sound heretical, and sometimes I don't think they understand how unusual members of Alcoholics Anonymous they are. I do not think that the design of Alcoholics Anonymous was to go to 6 or 7 meetings a week and sponsor 18 people. And I think there are some wonderful people that do that and more. I mean, I know guys that go to a meeting every day. I happen to go to 5 or 6 meetings a week. I go to meetings most days. I do them 6:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock at night, 7:30 at night. I think the design of Alcoholics Anonymous was to go to 2 or 3 meetings a week, help people, and get your life back. To go back to your community, go back to your job. I think in any organization, 10% of the people do 30 to 35% of the leadership and work. I think the body of the organization is the 70% people kind of in the middle. I think everybody should have the opportunity to sponsor. I think, to miss the opportunity to have 1 or 2 or 3 people that you have had the pleasure of going through the steps with is not to be missed. But I think sometimes those of us that stand up at this mic who are sponsoring 20 people or 20, we do what we do. And I don't think that's the average model. And yet, I think that when Sandy was talking about reading spiritual books and stuff, I have been moved to do those things because of people I've been attracted to. So if I would go to a conference and listen to Sandy talk, I might ask him after the meeting, or I might hear in his talk that he does some reading, and if I like what he has, I'm going to, so that's one of the reasons I like about conferences. I get to hear 5 or 6 people talk. I go home, and it's an encouragement for me to become a little bit more active and do a little bit more than I was doing prior to what I came. So in general, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I like the sponsorship that I see. I think there's more dedication to the book and more taking people through the steps in a formal way than there was when I came in Alcoholics Anonymous by a significant amount. And I'll talk about some of the mischief I see in that, but by and large, I think we're doing pretty good.
Thanks, buddy. Obviously, you see me on a one-track path. I go to the 12th step where it says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. So there's only one goal in the steps, and that's to have a spiritual awakening and to show the next person how to have one. Not to get sober, how to have a spiritual awakening. I believe that's what it says. And so anything that falls short of that is cheating people. Now, we can make it very comfortable, and we could eliminate that and not talk about it, and that would be fine, and we'd have fairly comfortable society. But boy, it would be like going to the gold mine and never digging down far enough and to hit that mother lode. So that's why I go after that. And it isn't that I saw lots of people doing that. I saw a few people, and Chuck Chamberlain was one of them. And that transformed my whole life because I had a new target to aim at. And so, and he didn't urge anybody to do that. His energy did. It was just being in his presence. You just went, what the hell is this? And so so anything I see that appears to be in the way of that, I think is cheating new people out of something much bigger than they may already have. So that's why I focus on this. I can remember being at meetings and the speaker talked about God constantly. And I sat out there angry. I was furious. God, Jesus, that's all I hear about. And part of me's going, enough about God, what about me? Do you know that feeling? Hey, okay. Now let's get back. Look, can I raise my problems? Could I tell you what's going on? And So which part of me didn't want to hear about God? My heart or my ego? My ego. And so anytime I give in to that part of me, anytime I want something changed in AA because it bothers me, we're in trouble. That would be the worst reason to change anything, is because it bothers someone. I mean, God, if I had only known when I was new the power of the word offend. We hadn't come up with offend yet. You know what I mean? As a trump card, where if you say, that offends me, whoop, I would have played it. I would have told him that not drinking offended me very, very much. And the fifth step was an invasion of privacy, and going to all these meetings, I got other things to do, and being told what to do by a dictator sponsor. What is that? I have the right to freedom and this and that. And what if AA had caved in and said, you're right, we're going to stop talking about not drinking and all that? I mean, it would have been a disaster. And so I came to love all the things that I didn't like. I came to love them. I tell people when they're getting ready to quit a job because they can't stand it, I say, go ahead and quit, but don't quit till you like it. Stay there 2 more months and learn how to like it, then quit. Why? That's a spiritual lesson. You can't learn the spiritual lesson if you don't like something. Somebody says, okay, well, then we'll change it. That's fine, but it doesn't teach anything. There's no growth in that. So there's so many opportunities to change. And imagine if you worked on your spiritual life enough so that nothing bothered you. Wouldn't that be nice? No one would have to change their behavior at all.
It's a trick.
It's a theory, right, Bob? It's just a theory. It's just a theory. So whenever you hear me talk, you're going to hear me going right down this same line. I'm just not going to deviate. And so anytime I see something that is watering down the spirituality, you're going to hear me talk about it, because I don't want the people coming after me to miss out on the best they could have. I already got it. So I just am so happy with what I was given, and I don't want anybody else to miss out on it. So I'll make some more comments later, but they'll all be on the same theme.
Why the hell would you do that? It's really fun. I mean, that's what I came to get my nose pressed up against. I've always tried to be reasonably open in how I live my life, so I can share what's going on, so I don't feel like I'm had a couple of great examples of that in my early sobriety of men that I really respected. And so when people the last year or so have been asking me how I am, I often share the issues that I am going through. And when I'm around you, I feel like that's wrong. It's less good. No, I think it's okay in that I'm sharing what's going on. And they have gotten less dramatic, and I whine less. And I'm talking more about the circumstances, because the circumstances are real. But when he talks about, so if you came over to my house and we talk, I mean, what I'm going to try to do is get you to see you don't have a problem. My first reaction to that is I'm getting irritated. How dare you say I don't have a problem? I'm saying, you are attached. You are really attached to this problem. And I mean, that's what I'm going through when he's talking. I said, yeah, I think that's generally right, but I think it's too simple. You know, and I mean, general application, I think it would be a good technique. I'm starting to get worried that it's not a technique. God. And that was told to me in my first 3 weeks of Alcoholics Anonymous. I can remember the man, I can remember the table I was sitting at. And he said, what do you want? I want to be happy. Well, there's 2 ways to be happy. Get what you want. Not likely. Change the way you respond to what is happening. And 42 and a half years later, 43 years later, I am sitting here in front of almost exactly the same words. Some minor things I don't like about our fellowship. We're becoming ritualistic. When I was a delegate at the General Service Conference in New York, Dr. Jack Norris, who for years and years was the chairman of the General Service Board and a real advisor to Bill, and he used to be the medical guy at Eastman Kodak, and he was a guy that could have Bill's ear and probably have some influence on Bill. He was very worried about ritualism back in the 80s in Alcoholics Anonymous. As he saw it in the Washingtonian movement, and he felt it was a separator. So when I came in, we said the Lord's Prayer, we didn't hold hands. So now we're saying the Lord's Prayer, we're holding hands. And then we got the break dance at the end of the, at the end of the Lord's Prayer. And now we have this neurotic, almost pathological need to form a crop circle after the Lord's Prayer. I mean, there are people in wheelchairs, 80-year-olds. I mean, I've seen it now in groups with 1,000 people trying to figure out how to do a circle. Like someone gave them Kool-Aid on the way in. Circle, 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 circle. And at the end, when you hear the word Our Father, circle, circle, it is like lemmings, and okay, now if you were not a very young person who enjoys the ritual. The younger you are, the more it kind of makes you part of, and you go. But if you were a mainstream 40-year-old person coming in, watching them form the crop circle at the end of an AA meeting, I mean, it's a ritual. It is cult-looking. It is not, it's one of you might tell it's a pet peeve. I think I hide it well, but it, and readings. You go to conferences, and they have the same readings for the same people that attend all the meetings. We are getting, I'm a Catholic. That's the high mass. We go in there, and we read how it works. We read the traditions, and then they often have another reading, that follows it at every meeting to the same people who are walking in a room. And we tried to change that at our conference this year. You would have thought we were urinating on the big book. It was just, it was inviolable. End of conversation. We are not changing the readings. And I'm saying, so, guys, we're getting attached to form, not substance. And we have that criticism of other organizations, whether the symbols of the Masons and all the different things that we see. We have our own little brands, and they are separating, not including. And then all the meetings where people chant, at the end, at the promises, these extravagant promises, and everybody yells out, "We think not," and you have to know when to do it. And so now at conferences, they're asking people not to do that, and they still can't not do that. We had 8,000 people at our state roundup, and we asked people not to talk or participate during the readings, and they, right up until the very last sentence, and they crop circled, or they did whatever the hell they did. Whatever they had to come in. I think there's so that's one of my pet peeves. My main concern, and I don't express it very well, and I'm kind of formulating a way to try to say it because I'm both attracted to it and I'm both turned off by it, is the movement towards orthodoxy. Every movement, every church movement has a movement towards orthodoxy, where there gets to be, at first there's a sense of wonder that what God has given us. When we went through the miracle phase of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we were so in love with our friends, and now we've come of age, and we have our program, and I think we've developed somewhat of an institutional arrogance about the fact that we have the answer for alcoholism. And within our organization, we have the, kind of schools. They aren't formal, they aren't really recognized, but certainly in some way the Pacific Group or the Foxhall Group would be, a minor movement in Alcoholics Anonymous. The people copy it and replicate it, the format and the enthusiasm, and they try to think there are many good things about it, and there are some things about it that might be of concern. The tendency to, you get a sense now that people that are taking people through the book, and they're more on the line by line sort of thing. It takes us 2.5 years to go through the book. You listen to some of these people talk, and you think you might need a master's degree to go through the steps. I mean, it is really, Sandy and I were talking, they have these new things, these Woodstock, weekends, and you get a step, and you get an hour and a half to talk about the step. And, I know my sponsor would say, what are you going to do for the other 80 minutes? It is, it is, so I don't know how to say what I want to say in that process, but there is a feeling. I get a feeling when I'm in front of certain groups, and I get a feeling when I'm in front of certain people who are really into the technique of taking people through the book, that if you're not doing it like I'm doing it, you're a little bit lame. It's not okay. I mean, you're okay. You're still a member, but, you're liked. You're just not well liked. And and that is not an attitude that I saw for the first 20 years I was in Alcoholics Anonymous. The guy was in AA, going to meetings, and he was sober. He was a pretty good member of Alcoholics Anonymous. We weren't evaluating that person to see if they were, and I think what I don't like about it, and who cares, but I think the only powerful, significant, workable application of spiritual principles is in their positive application, not their negative application. So if you're pointing out what people are doing wrong, to me, you're misusing a spiritual principle. If you say, one of the things that we do in our group that I have found to be pretty effective is we really go into it in detail. And I know not everybody likes it, but this is what we do, and we go through it and we find that we seem to get more guys and gals, keep them than we did before. How would you argue with that? I mean, there just isn't anything that's not laying anything on you. It's not, but if I take it from the other side, this is, we've developed a technique that we think is the right way to go with this. If you're, and boom, 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 and, that sort of thing. So those would be two of the things, the ritualism and the rigidity, criticism of other groups, tendency towards orthodoxy, would be one of my other concerns.
That's funny Bob brought that up, because when I got sober, all we did was read the preamble and start the meeting. And that went on for years and years, and then here it comes from California. That's what everybody told us. This is coming from California. We're holding hands, and then we're reading how it works and the traditions and all of that, and a long form of the traditions, and it just was taking up a lot of the meeting. So we were going to plan one time. We never pulled it off. Did I ever tell you this? Clancy was coming to Washington, D.C., and we were going to take him to a group that he hadn't been to just to be there for the meeting. And we were going to keep reading until he said, "What the hell is going on?" We had one guy, it's the custom of this group to read the chapter to the agnostic, and then we'd start reading. And something happened, he had to go somewhere else, and we didn't get to pull it off, and I feel. So we just started a meeting in Tampa, and we just read the preamble and start the meeting. But it's fun to do it, but you got to realize if it isn't being done somewhere else, it's not wrong. Do you follow what I'm saying? One of the definitions of humility, one of the attributes of humility is that you don't compare. So if you make the statement, my home group is the best home group in AA, and if you don't think your home group is the best home group in AA, that sounds great, but it wouldn't qualify for humility, would it? It would qualify for arrogance. But it feels good to say it. So these are just throwaway lines. They have nothing to do with anything. But I just want to finish, and then we're going to grab questions until Bob and Linda have to go. I want to just finish on why I think spirituality is so important. I mean, read the book. What do you think it says? What's the whole point of this if it isn't to have the highest possible connection with your Creator? And because of various changes in society, because this wasn't that way 25 years ago, but I think because of various changes in society, the fellowship is trying to put its message out in grapevine articles, pamphlets, and all this, so that it doesn't offend anyone. And in order to do that, it has to water it way down. And I'll give you an example. One of my heroes when I came in was Paul Martin, who, Riverside, Illinois, just died, was 62 years. And I was an avid grapevine reader, and I could hardly wait for an article by Paul M., never met him or anything, because he went in depth so much into some spiritual principle that I felt electrified when I read it. And then as the years went on, I just stopped subscribing. It was nice, it was very diverse, it was kind of fun, but we never went in depth into anything. And when he was celebrating his 60th anniversary, somebody called me and gave me his phone number so I could congratulate him. And I got on the phone and we went to this topic. And he said, they won't accept my articles anymore. He said, I try to submit them and they won't take them because they might offend someone. And he sent me all the articles he ever wrote. So I have a file on Paul Martin. and it's just wonderful. And the same thing in our pamphlets. I wouldn't let anybody I sponsor read the pamphlet on sponsorship. Now, why am I saying that? I want it on the CD so that maybe somebody in New York hears it. There's a lot of them I wouldn't let, the pamphlet, the Members' Eye View of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, there's a pamphlet. Has everybody read that? If you haven't read it, go get it and read that and then see, wow, why don't we talk like that all the time? And so there's just this push watering down to make sure no one's feelings are hurt. And that leaves us at this level that I'm talking about, where, okay, no one's upset. Well, we're not making progress, but at least we're comfortable in our mediocrity. Okay, that's possible. We can make everybody comfortable in our mediocrity. Now, how about moving on? Spiritual gain always involves pain. We have to go against, well, I don't like this. And then after you do it, then you go, well, actually, I'm glad that we did it, even though I didn't like it. How many times have we done that? I don't want to make an amend. What if we had said, okay, geez, I don't want to offend you. Don't make the amend. And then you went and made it, and then you go, geez, I can't believe how wonderful I feel. I can't believe how wonderful I feel now that after 3 years, I love the Lord's Prayer. I'm so glad they didn't take it away when I was bitching about it. I'm so glad it's part of my life now. We would have cheated them out of it. And it's not just that, it's many other things. So, I don't know what to do, you know what I mean, except tell you what's in my heart and to try and be a good example for what's possible. I think attraction is the most powerful medium for change because that's what Chuck did. That was what made me want to see what all this really was. What is really possible? Not what's going on, in my home group. We're getting people sober, we're taking them through the steps. But let's remember, in the 11th step, what does it say? It says it's essentially an individual adventure. Our libraries are full of books. In the big book and the 12 and 12, that's what it says. Go seeking, move on. Then your energy will make somebody, you don't go back to your home group and say, okay, we're all going to start reading this outside book and we're going to all get more spiritual. You won't have to say that. People will go, what are you doing? How come you're so much more comfortable than you used to be? And then you start it. So, Bob, I didn't, no, that's all. I'm a broken record, I'm sorry.
You have a very good groove for a broken record. When I said the meetings were different when I came in, society is different. So first of all, it's far more secular. So it talks about God is not as, people are not as interested and they're not as comfortable with that conversation as they used to be before. Society as a whole, I think, supports addiction. It's more the model of addiction today than it is the model of recovery. This idea that you keep sending out people credit card with $5,000 lines, that you can order drugs on the internet, that you can, you know, they're building gambling casinos on lots of corners, and you can gamble online, and the debt level and the money level of being able to mortgage your house 5 or 10 or 15%. I mean, we have just kind of taken, it seems like our society takes everything. I think the life of an idea might have been 5 or 10 years before. Now it's about 15 months, and they just take it from zero, you know, to 400 miles an hour to a level of unsustainability. And that, for some reason, becomes a norm. I mean, kids are ADD today because of they watch these programs, and there's a stimulation on every second. And when if that's what they might be doing 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day, all of a sudden they get out in the world and they want a stimulation. So we think that that's part of what's going on in our society. So that's part of what's invading our meetings. It's part of what's invading the world. And I think to some extent we have to cling to our program because of the common sense, the simplicity, the strength in it. It really is. It is maintaining our spiritual condition is just such a wonderful way to say what our path to stability is. We're going to do questions?
Yeah. Well, let me just say what Bob and I thought. Since they have to leave at 20 of 11, we were thinking of just doing these questions till we run out of time. Is everybody go along with that? That's without a break.
Then the meeting will be over and we'll...
Is that all right?
Someplace a 5-minute break so you can change the disc.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You don't want New York to miss anything.
How the hell...
Let's do it now and we'll do the questions.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's take a 5-7 minute break and then we'll do the questions and they can change the CD. Good, good, good.